Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to deploy this particular architecture using Elastic Beanstalk. The main goal is to demo the high availability architecture using Elastic Beanstalk. So here we are going to learn a lot of things. So I'll just explain the architecture here, and then we can just uh, we'll do this hands-on using the AWS console. So let's start and let's understand what is the architecture. So we have our VPC here. Okay, we have the two availability zones. Okay, your availability zone is one is US East 1A and the other one is 1B, and there are two public subnets, and those two public subnets are connected to your internet gateway. Okay, and then we have two private, only one private two private subnets, and one of the private subnet is going to have our EC2 instance. Okay, and this will be via the Elastic Beanstalk environment. We'll use the Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, and inside this instance, we will have two things here. One is the Nginx, which will act as a reverse proxy. It is going to listen on port 80 for any request, and we will have our Spring Boot application, which will listen on 8080. And what reverse proxy will do is it will accept the request or listen the request on port 80, and then it will forward it to the Spring Boot application on 8080. So that's the goal here. And for this, we would also need NAT gateway. Here, NAT gateway this private subnet is basically going to use the NAT gateway. Okay, why it is required? Because see, when we are deploying or uh, installing our application, right, using Elastic Beanstalk environment, so there are a lot of things that Elastic Beanstalk will do. It will use CloudFormation behind the scenes, and for that it will connect to the CloudFormation service. It is going to get the jar file from the S3. Okay, our code basically from S3, and a lot of other stuff like downloading the Nginx, etc. That it will use the internet for that, and for that, and since it is in the private subnet, right, so it is very important that it has to connect to the internet basically just to download the files or connect to various services to install the or deploy the application. So that is why you would need the NAT gateway here. So that's the whole goal. And NAT gateway will be in your public subnet. Just keep that thing in mind. NAT gateway will be in public subnet. Okay. And we'll have the application load balancer here. So currently I'm just going to deploy one instance, but then we can have multiple instances which can be deployed in these two private subnets. And why it is in private subnet? So that externally it is not available to anyone. So it is hiding, or it is basically encapsulated in the private subnet, only accessible via application load balancer. So that's the whole architecture here. So this is something that we will deploy using the Elastic Beanstalk environment. And as you will see, using Elastic Beanstalk, we will create this highly available environment. Okay, highly available infrastructure, and we'll just focus on the code. So that's the whole goal here. We'll just add some few configurations and everything will be ready. Elastic Beanstalk will create a load balancer, your target groups, auto scaling groups. It will install Java, Nginx. It will get the jar file, deploy your Spring Boot application, start the Spring Boot application. Everything will be done by Elastic Beanstalk environment. So your main focus will always be on the Spring Boot application. That's as per the environment. I'll first show you our VPC and the public subnet that we have created. So let's understand it. So this is the VPC, that is my VPC. Okay, and in this my VPC, so the CIDR range is 10.0.0/24. So it is 2 raised to 8, which is around 256 IPs, which is enough for us. And this is my VPC, and then it has four subnets. Subnet 1A, public subnet 1A, which is in the US East 1A region, private subnet 1A, which is again in US 1A region. And so basically these two are two availability zones, and we have two public subnets and two private zones. Okay, and as you can see, it is connected to this route tables. For the public subnet, it is connecting to the internet gateway. As you can see here in this diagram, the public subnet, we are connecting to internet gateway. So it has the internet access. So anything that you install here has the internet access via the internet gateway. So this is here, and the private route table, what we have is it is connecting to your NAT gateway, and here I have also added S3 gateway endpoint, because we are going to access the S3. Elastic Beanstalk is going to use the S3. So we are avoiding the internet traffic. We use the gateway endpoint, but here you can clearly see that our private subnet is basically connecting to your NAT gateway, and that is what this particular resource map also shows. Okay, about the VPC. So this was the VPC environment. Now we'll move to creating the Elastic Beanstalk environment. So this is our Elastic Beanstalk environment. Here we'll create the environment using this application, which is Spring Boot app, the name that I have given for demo. Now, how to create the application, I have already explained in the other video of complete details on the Elastic Beanstalk. I will not go in detail about that. Now, we'll directly go to creating the environments. There is one version of this particular Spring Boot application which I have already uploaded here in the application versions. Now, if I click here and if I go here, I can create a new environment. Again, the environment here would be web server environment. For complete details about what are all these things, you can watch that other video, which I'll be adding in the description. Now I'll just use the name of this environment as prod 7 for now. SB app prod 7. I'll check the availability. Okay, there is the availability. Since it is my Spring Boot application, the platform would be Java, and the application code existing version 1.0, which I have just shown back. In the presets, I will use the high availability environment. Now in the service access, I would need this service role. This is like the DevOps role for creating the infrastructure. Elastic Beanstalk will need this role. It has all the required permissions to create the environment or the infrastructure. The instance profile is basically the access permission required for the application to access various services. In our case, we are not accessing any AWS services, but then uh, in case you have application which is accessing any AWS services like S3 or DynamoDB, etc., then you should add the permission in this EC2 instance profile. The key pair is basically if you want to connect to this EC2 instance, then you can use this SSH. For the SSH, you can use this key pair. That is the about the service access. And as far as the VPC is concerned, so instance setting, where do you want the instance to be installed, okay, or deployed basically. The public address, I will disable it because it is going to be in the private subnet, and I'm going to deploy this in private subnet 1B. The reason being, my NAT gateway is in public subnet 1B. I have not deployed NAT gateway in both the availability zones. I have just deployed in 1B just to avoid the traffic cost. I am going to deploy instance in US East 1B only. That is why I am using this private subnet 1B, but you can also deploy in private subnet 1A instances. Moving ahead, I am just going with the general purpose now. TP3, the root volume device. Here I can select the security group. For capacity, I am not going to do any load balancing. I'm just auto scaling. I'm just going to keep one instance only for now. And here I'm going to use t3.micro. So this is all related to auto scaling, all configurations. Now we come to load balancer configuration. Okay, so now we are into this ALB configurations. Okay, so let's understand that. So where do you want the ALB to be deployed? So we can select one public subnet, that is also okay. Just note that load balancer is a regional resource. Okay, it is always on top. It is a regional resource, right? It can access all the availability zones. Okay, but Beanstalk need this information. I'm just going to add 1A and 1B, and both of them are the public subnet. I'm going to use application load balancer here, dedicated load balancer. Now, listener processes and rules. Listeners is basically the listener of the ALB. So, where it is going to listen on which port. Processes is basically your target group or the target environment, basically your instance group. In our case, it will be the auto scaling group because we have already configured the auto scaling group as you have seen just above. So first I will create the process, then automatically this process will be added to listener. Let's do that. I will give this name as target group 80 as it is listening on port 80. As you can see, my application on this EC2 instance, it is accessible on the port 80 using the Nginx reverse proxy. That is why I am using this 80. Just keep that in mind. And this Nginx and everything is installed by Elastic Beanstalk. You are not going to do anything. I have just provided the jar file for our Spring Boot application. That's it. I have not provided anything related to Nginx or something. This is done by Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. So just note this point. And I need to give the health check. What is the health check of my health check URL of my application? It is API/health. Timeout second is 5 seconds. Is fine. I'll just increase this number on LD threshold to 10, and I'll just save it. So my this target group is ready. Here I'll just check the listener. So listener is listening on port 80 because it will be our HTTP okay on the load balancer, and then the target group is also listening on 80 as I explained. On this instance, it is listening on port 80. And rules, you can add a rule anyways. The default rule will also work, but let's add this rule for now. All my path, basically I'm using a path based approach here. The path patterns, here host headers, path patterns, etc. Here I'm just going to use path patterns, and my path basically always start with slash API. That is why I've used this slash API slash star. So anything starting with slash API, and after that anything is allowed. And what it will do is it will call this target group. When it takes process, it's the target group. And again, if you're confused about the load balancer, etc., how do you deploy the load balancer, auto scaling group, target group? There is another video of that which I have created. You can watch that video also. If you come here, I'll just keep the health reporting as very basic management platform updates, and this will be all at once. I just need to add the properties here. So one is port. So this port, because my Spring Boot application is listening on port 8080, right? As you can see, it is listening on port 8080. My Nginx reverse proxy, basically, if you don't add this particular parameter, right, port 8080, the proxy pass, it will by default, it by default put 5000 as the default port if you don't add anything here. So I need to add this particular parameter. Just keep this thing in mind, okay? Say your Spring Boot application is listening on 9000 port, then your port number should be your 9000. It will not pick up from your application properties or YAML file. So just keep that thing in mind. You just need to add it here. And there is one more version property. I can just put it here as 1.0. Then I can, it's mostly completed. You can just review here. Just verify if all the details that you have added is correct. And then just do create. Then you will get this message, Elastic Beanstalk is launching an environment. You know, we just provided all the details. I just had the jar file of this Spring Boot application. I rest everything from application load balancer, auto scaling group, to your target groups, your Nginx reverse proxy, your Java environment, etc. Everything will be created by Elastic Beanstalk, and a very highly available environment that you can build using Elastic Beanstalk. So that's the advantage that you get with Elastic Beanstalk. It's a platform as a service, and that is why you can use Elastic Beanstalk. You can even have your custom configuration as well if you want. But I think this is a very complex and good environment to understand and learn. This will really help you. And let's understand, see what it is doing here. And one more thing, when Elastic Beanstalk is basically using cloud formation, just to show you underneath, what it does is basically it is using cloud formation to create the infrastructure. I'll just show you. So here you can see this particular stack, right? It is creation in progress, and here it is actually using cloud formation. It is doing the deployment. Here you can see all the details. It has created auto scaling, etc. We can also check side by side what all things have been created by Elastic Beanstalk. So as you can see here, created security group, created target group name, it created auto scaling group as well. So here if I go here, so first I will show you the auto scaling group. As you can see, the auto scaling group is created. Then we have the target group. So if you remember, the name was target group, that is, it has just picked up initial few letters of that, and it has registered the prod 7 environment. Again, you will see that it is part of the auto scaling group. Basically, how the instance is launched here, it creates the auto scaling group, it sets the desired capacity to 1, and then your instance is created by auto scaling. Okay. So CloudFormation just creates the auto scaling group. It sets the desired capacity to whatever you have set. I have set it as 1. That is why it has started the instance. And as you can see, it has deployed the instance on US East 1B. If you remember in the configuration when we were building in the we are building the Elastic Beanstalk configuration, right? So I had kept only this particular availability zone in that, and that too it will be the private subnet 1B. As you can see, this instance is they are deployed on private subnet 1B. And you can also see it has created the load balancer as well. You don't have to create anything here. It is taking care of that. That's the advantage here. It has created the rules as well, right? The rules that we had set. If you look into the resource map, it is showing HTTP 80 forward to root target group instance, and then we are just calling our instance, and it is showing healthy as well. So our beanstalk environment should be ready by now and successfully launched prod 7 environment. So if you go into the deployments tab, it will give you one request ID, and you can find all the details what of the events. If anything has failed, you can always see here, and you can go to cloud formation environment, and you can just find it. Now, a few important things to keep in mind as far as the Elastic Beanstalk is concerned, especially say I'm deploying my application in private subnet, right? Here in the private subnet. Say my private subnet, assume that it doesn't have any internet access, right? If it doesn't have any internet access, and say even we don't even have NAT gateway, just assume for now there is no NAT gateway. It's completely private and it's completely within VPC. The communication is within VPC for the private subnet. Now, for the Elastic Beanstalk, the thing is, it has to deploy Nginx, so it has to get the code for that. It has to get the S3 code from S3 service. It has to call the cloud formation environment, which I have already shown you. And there are a lot of other services which it needs, right, to create the infrastructure and the environment. So that is why it has to connect to those services. Either you create the endpoints for all of them, but then since it is going to anyways connect to external most like external services, right? So I have added this NAT gateway. You can also add this NAT gateway. For S3, you can create the S3 gateway endpoint. Or like for Nginx code, etc., you would need this NAT gateway for sure, because it has to download the source code from the internet to install this Nginx. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind while creating. Just make sure that you have this NAT gateway. Otherwise, you might end up getting unhealthy instance. When you see unhealthy instance, for sure your application or your basically uh, won't have been created or deployed. So just keep this thing in mind. Now we just test this out. So this is my Elastic Beanstalk environment. If I go to application, it shows me the environment prod 7 which we created. And if I click on this prod 7 environment, it is giving me the URL as well. And if I click on this, I'll just add the health, or I'll show the health URL. As you can see, it is working fine. So this is how you can actually build the whole complete infrastructure from your Beanstalk environment. So this was all about today's demo. So we have successfully deployed our application and using the highly available environment and a very complex infrastructure in a very, without even understanding a lot of details about how to create the load balancer, how to create the target group, auto scaling group. Everything has been created by Elastic Beanstalk. So that's the advantage that you get with Elastic Beanstalk. You just focus on your application code, and that is what we are watching today. Now, one more thing, I want to terminate or just uh, terminate this instance. So we can go and terminate this environment. And the other way is obviously we don't want this application. Application is a logical container. It has application versions. If I click here, it has application versions, and it also has the environments. Every application has the environments. Now, either you can terminate this environment, and when you terminate the environment, all the uh, things like auto scaling group, target group, load balancer, instances, everything will be deleted basically. It will be removed by the cloud formation. Okay. So internally the Elastic Beanstalk. So Elastic Beanstalk will completely remove your environment. You just keep that thing, one thing in mind. So when you remove this application, when you delete application, or when you terminate this environment, all your resources, infrastructure, etc. will be removed by Elastic Beanstalk. So just keep that one thing in mind. Okay. So it is tightly coupled to the Elastic Beanstalk environment. I'm just going to start this process, I'm going to delete this application for now. I'll just show you what will happen here. When it is either creating or uh, terminating, you will see the self status as gray. And also when it is not successful, right, the environment creation is not successful, it always remains the self status as gray. Otherwise, it will be green. As you can see in the cloud formation, right, it is showing delete in progress. You can clearly see the same stack basically which was deployed for Elastic Beanstalk. It is now getting deleted. Now the auto scaling group is removed. Your target group is removed. Your load balancer is removed. Your instance is terminated. And if you look at the security groups, the security groups have been deleted. And if you go here in the events, the delete application completed successfully, the environment has been deleted successfully, and now the health status is unknown after termination. And if you go here, there is no application now. So we have successfully removed the Elastic Beanstalk environment as well. And if I try to run this, obviously it will not. Thank you so much. Have a good day.